Hey guys, and welcome to another ArcGIS Online video. Today, as a part of your assessment, you'll be looking at creating a mud map of your festival site layout. So you need to consider things like stage position, the amenities and services that your attendees might need to access, activities and experiences, where your power sources are going to be set up, and more. Now, I'm not going to necessarily go into an extensive list today because that's something that's probably going to happen in class as a bit of a collaboration project between yous. But let's jump into it and I'll show you the basics. So if we head over to the internet, I'll just show you an example of, I guess, a really brief mud map for attendees. Now, this is for Coachella Music and Arts Festival over in the United States in California. And this is a little bit more advanced than what we will be creating, but we can see that there's a general layout that shows where things are for the festival goers. For example, they've got their major stage locations and where they are in the festival site. They've got things like restaurants and bars. You can see that bathrooms are clearly labeled, as well as eating areas. Okay, and we've got certain features as well, like the art installations that are available throughout the park. You can see that there's a bit of a legend down the bottom as well. So we're essentially going to create something like this, and it's not going to look as pretty, but it will get the job done because it'll tell us, or tell your attendees where things are within the site itself. So if we head over to ArcGIS Online and you've logged in, once you're logged in, before we go to map today, we're actually going to head over to content. And we'll let content load. But once it does, we're going to create a new item in the top left corner. And we're going to create a series of feature layers. And we want to create a blank layer today. And you're essentially you can create as many layers as you think you need for the different types of features that you want to map on your site. We'll start with some of the obvious ones, and again, I'm not going to make an extensive list, but we'll add a couple. Now, stage is more than just a point layer, so we probably want to choose polygon layer for stage. And what polygon layer means is a polygon's a fancy word for, I guess, an area of data. So that will allow us to draw a rectangle essentially, or a shape, a polygon on a map. So there's one for stage. I'll give an example of a point layer. A point layer might be water refill stations. We'll keep that as point because that's essentially all we need to do is put a pin on a map and then change the symbol to a water symbol, and that will be fine for that. And then I'll give one example of a line layer as well. We might, one line layer that we might want to add a bit more clearly is something like perhaps, and we can change that to line layer. Your lists will be much more extensive than this. You'll need to consider everything that might need to be mapped from a bird's eye view for your festival goers, and you need to be careful that as you set them up, or as you add them on your left, that you choose the right kind of layer for them over here. Because if I chose stage, or if I wrote stage here but I forgot to change it from point layer, that means when I go to add it to my map, it's not going to let me draw a polygon. It's just going to let me put a pin on a map. So you've got to get this right. I would be double checking. If you have a list of 10 to 15 things, then you'll need to not just do your list, but then go back through and just spend some time double checking that everything's right before you click next. Once you're happy, you do click next. And you can add a title. You'll need to add a title for your feature layers. So I'm going to call it something that's reflective of all of them. Something like mud map feature layers or festival. Now, something you need to do is add your name on the end. because something that ArcGIS Online doesn't allow us to do is to have 26 students all create a list of features and then all name it the same title. So it'll allow ArcGIS Online to differentiate between them. If you add your name onto the end of it, that will allow you to create it. You can add a summary if you want so that you know what you're looking at later, but I'm going to today just hit save. It's going to create that feature layer for me. Now, the more features I have, the longer this might take. It probably doesn't help that I've got the football on mute in the background, also taking up some of my bandwidth, but we will just wait a second for it to create that for us. All right, so here we are. We've got our feature layer here. It's been created. It's got our layers list in here for us. What we're going to do is we're going to go up to this right-hand corner, and open this in a map viewer, preferably in a new map as well, because you don't want your maps to get too busy in the content pane. So here's my content. I'm going to cancel out of this for now, but I've clicked on my content pane and I can see my layers here. Now, my first job before I even bother doing anything over here with my map is to clean up the names of my layers, because if I look over in Legend, this looks really messy for when you go to think about bolts later on. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click on my first layer, go to the 3 dots, and I'm going to click on rename. I'm essentially going to get rid of the first bit just so that it just says stage. I'll repeat that a couple of times. You'll have a list much more advanced or longer than mine, so you'll have to do this for a bit more, but I'll just do it for these 3 today. Okay, and you can see if we go back to our legend, it's a lot clearer and cleaner to look at for those looking at our mud map. Now, if we go to content for a second, we'll hang around there and we're going to go to our festival location. So I'm typing the address of our festival location into the search bar, hitting enter, and the topographic map's not going to do us too good today, so we need to change that to satellite imagery. And I'm just going to go out a bit and we can see here's our festival area. And today, just as an example, I'm just going to map site B, which is this area here, just because it's a little bit easier for me to put random things down. Now, to add my features, before I want to add them, I first actually want to set some symbology. At the moment, this is pretty bland symbology, and I can get it looking a bit better. So for stage, if I click on shapes, I'm going to leave step 1 for all of my layers today, but I'm going to go down to step 2 and hit the options button, and I can click on this symbol and I can choose the fill and the outline. So if I want my stage to be, a strong black shade, and I can set an outline, I can play with the line width and the transparency of the color. So I can actually play with the transparency of the color as well. You can see that my black gets lighter in there. I'm going to hit OK, and hit done. And we can see that that change has been made to the legend. I'm going to do the same with the water refill stations. So if I hit the change symbol, leave step 1, click on options for step 2, symbols, and I can search in any of these drop downs from memory. Government's a really good one for some unique symbols. When it loads, I'm pretty sure that there's a nice water droplet symbol in here for us. So you can see that there's some really good ones here. Something like this might be really good for something like a first aid tent, for instance. If I scroll down, I think it's about halfway down, we see a nice water droplet here. So I'm going to grab that. And whilst I'm at it, I might make it a bit clearer by making it bigger. hit OK, hit OK, hit done to lock it in. Check it in the legend if you want. We can see that change has been made. Fencing is the same thing. Click on the title, click on the shapes icon, hit options, and you can choose a fencing color. I'll choose a nice strong red so that my festival goers know where they're going. And you know what? I'll make it a bit thicker, size 3, and whilst I'm at it, I'll give it a bit of a fencing for a dotted look. Hit OK, hit OK, hit done to lock it in. We can see that those 3 layers have symbology changes. The next step is to go to edit, and we want to save these symbols to each of these layers for future use as well. So before we do anything like going and adding these to the map, you need to go to manage down the bottom and click through each of your layers. So we'll start with stage and hit save changes. And it saves that. And then I'm going to click, and you can see it grays out the box, which shows you that's been done. Click on the layout, change to water refill stations then, and repeat that process. What that means is that if you don't finish this mud map today, means you can come back to it next time and all of your symbology will be the same. If you don't do that, you'll come back next time and find that all the symbology is reverted back to what it was before. So once you've done that for all of your layers, you're going to go to edit again, and you can start adding things to the map. So let's start with the festival fencing. I'm just going to kind of, not too accurately today, just from a time perspective, but I clicked on the feature. I click on where I want the fence to start. And then every time I want to change direction, so once I'm at the end of the field, for instance, I click once, and that lets me change the direction of my fencing, for example. Okay, and again, I'm not being too accurate today, but that might be something that you are being marked on, your ability to create accurate maps, graphs, tables, etc. When you come back to where you want to finish your fencing, for instance, you double click to finish the shape off. And it's probably just loading for a second, or yep, there it is. And we can see that shape, or that line data has been created. Now, if I wasn't happy with it for whatever reason, I can delete it. I can also make little adjustments to it, but that's going to skew the whole fence line out. So I would advise against that. If you make a mistake, the best thing is to just delete it and go again. So there's my line, my fencing, sorry. Let's chuck a couple of water actually we'll chuck the stage in first. So I click on the stage. I'm going to set my stage up here. And similar principle, every time I want to change direction for my stage, I simply just have to click. And let's say I'm going to give him a little bit of a runway as well to walk out into or above the crowd on either side of him. And when I'm happy with the stage, I'm just going to double click to lock that in. And it might take a moment to load again. I'm going to close that, and we can see my stages there. Now again, it's not going to look as flash as this. These guys have, marketing and digital marketing experts that make things look really nice and pretty, but it's going to get the job done. Last points that we're adding today, I'm going to add some of my point features. So I'm going to have a couple of water refill stations. I'm going to have one over here. Close that, and I'm going to click on it again. I'm going to have one up the back for people that might be resting or want to break from the crowd. And I might have one over here. Now, if you're not sure where you want your things and you want to map other things first, that might be a better idea. It might be worth mapping some of the bigger features first, or some of the features that you will only have one of, and getting them down and placing them where they need to be. and then you can figure out where features like multiple water refill stations or bathrooms, etc., might be placed. And you can always, again, click on something. You can either delete it, and it will delete from your map, or you can click on something and I can always just, drag it somewhere else as well. So you're not locked in. Once you put something down, you can still make those changes as well. Now, the last thing you're going to do is you are going to save your map as you go, just so that, and do this regularly as well, just so that if an internet dropout does happen, or if you accidentally press the back button and thinking it's the undo button, you won't have to start again from the beginning of this process. So save regularly as you go, and you might save this map as something like, mud map of festival layout. That might be a good title. Thanks, guys. Cheers.